Thanks to President Trump's bold and visionary leadership and his commitment to peace through strength, Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen.
The order came at 0300 hours, no warning, no second chances. Across command centers spanning the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Desert, one encrypted message flashed on every screen simultaneously. Execute. Navy SEALs already in the water, Marines locked and loaded on amphibious ships, airborne forces standing in the door of C-17s at 15,000 feet. Iran had made its move by closing the Strait of Hormuz. Tonight, America was taking it back. For weeks, the world watched in growing alarm as Iranian forces transformed the Strait of Hormuz into a fortress. Coastal missile batteries were repositioned along rocky cliffs. Naval mines were quietly laid across shipping lanes under cover of darkness. Fast attack boats patrolled in tight formations. Iran's Revolutionary Guard commanders were confident. They believed they had found America's pressure point. 17 million barrels of oil passed through that strait every single day. Shut it down and the global economy begins to bleed. Energy prices spiked. Markets shook. Allies demanded action. The president turned to the Joint Chiefs and gave one direct order: open that strait by any means necessary. Inside CENTCOM's forward headquarters in Qatar, generals and admirals spread mission maps across long metal tables. Iran had layered its defenses carefully. Radar arrays stretched across the coastline. Missile systems were buried in reinforced hillside bunkers. Fast patrol boats hid in coves, ready to swarm any vessel in range. Breaking the blockade required 3 simultaneous strikes from 3 completely different directions. Navy SEALs would go in first, moving silently through dark water to destroy the coastal radar stations. Behind them, Marines would launch a full amphibious assault from the sea, and from above, the 82nd Airborne would drop directly onto the high ground, cutting off every Iranian escape route. Every unit had one objective: open the strait or the next wave comes. At 03:15, the water off the Iranian coastline was completely black. 6 SEAL combat swimmers moved beneath the surface using closed-circuit rebreathers that left 0 bubbles. They had studied every satellite image and thermal scan of the coastal radar installations for 10 straight days. They knew every guard rotation, every blind spot, every cable junction. They surfaced once, 60 meters from shore, confirmed their positions through night vision goggles, and went back under. The radar stations never saw them coming. In less than 12 minutes, 4 primary radar arrays were destroyed with precision explosive charges placed directly on the power systems. Iranian coastal defense operators stared at blank screens, frantically radioing commanders who had no answers. They had no idea the assault was already seconds away. The SEALs faded back into the water, leaving nothing behind but silence and darkness where Iran's eyes used to be. The moment radar confirmation came through, the order went to the fleet. Marines packed inside amphibious combat vehicles felt the well deck doors open beneath them. LCAC hovercraft roared to life, carrying Humvees, heavy weapons, and hundreds of combat-ready troops. CH-53E Super Stallion helicopters lifted off from flight decks, turning hard toward the coastline. The Marines hit the beach at 3 separate points simultaneously. Ramps dropped, boots hit sand. Within 30 seconds, the first Iranian defensive positions were already under direct fire. The Revolutionary Guard fighters defending that coast had expected a long approach. They got none. Marines moved with terrifying speed, using covering fire, smoke, and pure aggression to punch through the first defensive line before Iranians could fully react. The beach was cleared in under 20 minutes. Then the Marines pushed inland hard toward the primary coastal missile batteries that had been holding the strait hostage. While SEALs worked in silence and Marines fought on the sand, the sky above the Strait of Hormuz had already been decided. F-35C stealth fighters from the USS Gerald R. Ford had crossed into Iranian airspace 2 hours earlier at 40,000 feet, completely invisible to radar. The moment the beach assault began, they struck. 16 precision bombs fell in under 4 minutes. Iranian air defense networks built over years were reduced to burning wreckage before operators could reach a radio. B-52 stratofortresses followed from high altitude, releasing strings of JDAMs onto hardened underground bunkers. Walls of fire and black smoke rose from the hillsides. Iranian commanders underground lost communication, lost radar, lost coordination. They were fighting completely blind. At 0400, 60 C-17 aircraft flew in tight formation at 15,000 feet. Inside each aircraft, paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne Division sat in full combat load. When the green light flashed, the sky over Iranian high ground filled with paratroops. More than 2,000 paratroopers descended through pre-dawn darkness onto the ridgelines overlooking the strait. Their mission was to seal every escape route and every reinforcement road. By the time they landed and established their perimeter, Iranian forces were completely surrounded. Marines on the beach, armor pressing from the desert, airborne above on the high ground. Signals intelligence captured Iranian radio traffic, showing panic spreading across every frequency. Commanders who had planned the blockade for months were now desperately looking for a way out of a box they never saw closing around them. At 0600, M1 Abrams tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles rolled out of the desert in long, thundering columns, pressing hard toward the last missile positions. Tank main guns fired at ranges beyond anything Iranian forces could match. Position after position collapsed. Marines linking up with airborne units pushed forward as a single unified force. Iranian units that tried to maneuver were destroyed by circling attack helicopters before reaching secondary positions. Those that tried to retreat found the roads already blocked. There was no escape. The last major Iranian coastal missile battery was struck by a pair of F-35s at 0612. The explosion was massive. Secondary detonations rippled through the site for 3 full minutes as stored missiles cooked off inside destroyed launchers. When the smoke cleared, the coastline was completely silent. Every radar down, every missile site destroyed, every Iranian naval vessel sunk, burning, or fled. The Strait of Hormuz was open. At 0700, the first oil tanker moved. Its captain received one call from the U.S. Navy. The waterway is open. You are cleared to proceed. The horns sounded 3 long blasts across the water. Soldiers, Marines, and paratroopers standing on the secured coastline watched as tanker after tanker followed. Crews on deck waved toward the shore. The world's most critical waterway was open again, and the men and women who opened it stood quietly in the early morning light and watched the ships pass through. Navy SEALs who went in first with nothing but darkness and precision. Marines who stormed a defended coastline without hesitation. Paratroopers who dropped from the sky and sealed every exit. Pilots who owned the sky from the very first minute. They did it together, and because they did, the world could breathe again.